Welcome. Welcome to the world today. I'm Waqas Majeed Khan. First of all, our hearts go out to our Pakistani brothers who lost their lives and were injured in the dastardly attack in Quetta yesterday. And we'll be discussing that attack in detail and also talking about how Pakistan is fighting its war on terror, and still a long way for us to go before we achieve the desired objective of peace and to completely uproot this menace from our country. Our second topic is also related to our neighbors. It's about the Afghan and Pakistani parliamentarians meeting in Karachi. They call for stronger bilateral ties, and we'll also discuss that. Let's get the conversation started. I'd like to introduce my guests in the studio. Joining me today, we have General Talat Masood. Along with him, we have Khurram Iqbal, who is with the National Defense University, teaching counter-terrorism and is an expert on international relations. Then we have Atta Rehman Khilji Saab. He's the Deputy Secretary of the Quetta CM House. Thank you very much, sir, for being here. Sir, I'd like to start with you. We've been hearing tall claims by the government. Well, they're not very tall because we have seen results as well. But unfortunately, at this time, it is always a sensitive time. So many events are taking place, and the Christian community has again been targeted in Quetta. What would you like to say about our state of preparedness, sir, when it comes to dealing with these attacks, to be able to prevent them from happening rather than reacting, subsequently, sir?
Well, I think it's firstly one really sympathizes. It's so tragic, this incident. And to target innocent people, especially in church, on such an occasion when there is supposed to be a joyous sort of a month and, Christmas coming for them, and then you target them. It shows the sort of state of mind of these people who are targeting these innocent people, and also trying to bring about such sharp differences, between various religious groups. That aside, I think, as we know, the Daesh has claimed responsibility for this, and Daesh has been doing that all along, and I do not know what they really imply by or what is their motive behind killing these innocent people, because I don't think they really achieve anything except that there is so much of hatred for them, but yet they seem to get funds, they seem to have an organization, they seem to be even motivated to get people killed, because there are a lot of suicide bombers, and they exploit the young minds, because most of the people who have really died, they've been very young, and I think they are very uninitiated to life and very naive, somewhat similar to those who have been going through these madrasas, and they have been used, I think something like that. Although the government had taken sufficient precautions, and yet they were able to penetrate, and apparently they went to the top of the story, and from there they were trying to, but more details are still coming in.
The details that we have received, sir, was that at least the security forces reacted in time to prevent a further bloodshed, because these particular terrorists were apprehended close to the front door of the church, and therefore a large number of casualties was avoided due to the timely action of the police and security forces present at the moment.
There is one more thing I want to add here. That is that, the way that the Afghan border is at the moment, and the way that there is hardly any government of Afghanistan present on the border, especially on the side in Baluchistan, on the Baluchistan border, it has become very easy for them to penetrate into Pakistan. And despite that, Pakistan has taken a lot of precautions, but yet it becomes more or less impossible. But I would still say that I think we need to improve at least, the city of Quetta cannot be so vulnerable as it is at the moment.
Especially since this was a high security zone, sir.
high security zone. And if the high security zone can be penetrated by individuals like these, then it doesn't speak very high of the security measures that have been taken. So I presume that there will be a lot of rethink and there will be some very strong additional measures to be taken. And I think our whole policy, as I think you mentioned in your opening remarks, that it cannot continue to be reactive. We have to take certain actions which genuinely sort of prevent, and I'm sure you will be discussing the National Action Plan as well.
Absolutely, sir. I'd like to get Khurram's input in this conversation. Khurram, since you are also involved in teaching counterterrorism, so in that sense, what do you think, where are the areas that we are still lacking? Because surely this kind of a attack should have been prevented from taking place in the first place. So what are your observations about it?
Well, during last few months, there's been a spate of terrorist attacks, specifically in Quetta. I'm concerned that this may signal, this may be a symptom of a greater evil. There's a possibility that Daesh has been able to reorganize itself. That's why they have been able to conduct attacks so frequently. We have seen in the Middle East that Daesh suffered considerable setbacks there. They have lost the territory, they have lost the finances, and there were reports that after losing ground in Middle East, they may try to recapture what they call Khorasan, the Afghanistan region. If they have been able to reorganize themselves in Afghanistan, that may signal something really dangerous in the months to come. What we need to think at the moment is how Daesh has been able to reorganize and recuperate from the losses that they suffered in the Middle East. What we saw when Daesh basically moved to this region, which is called Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran, and the adjacent areas, they were quite effective I would say actions against Daesh by the law enforcement agencies of Sindh and Punjab province, and same goes for Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. I think if Daesh has been able to recuperate in Baluchistan, we must question the capabilities of the Baluchistan province, their counterterrorism agencies there, because this is not for the first time that Daesh has struck in Quetta. Recently there have been a number of attacks which were claimed by Daesh. In fact, few months ago, to be precise 8 to 10 months ago, there were reports that approximately 200 fighters of Daesh, who were originally from Balochistan, they moved to Middle East to seek trainings there, and they returned to Balochistan. That's the time when counterterrorism scholars and practitioners raised red flags that they are back in Balochistan after seeking training from their camps in Middle East. If timely actions would have taken by the federal and provincial law enforcement agencies, it could have basically prevent Daesh from reorganizing its ranks in Balochistan. So I would say more than the central issue, this is also the issue of the performance of the provincial counterterrorism departments.
Well, that's a very tragic picture that you have painted for us. Let's get Khilji Saab's opinion on that, since he is representing the provincial government. Khilji Saab, in your opinion, what do you think could have been done to avoid this catastrophe?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First of all, I would say that the government of Balochistan, it has already taken different precautionary measures for preventing such incidents, and it is also evident from the incident that two of the suicide bombers, they were killed, and they were not, you may say, they were not allowed to enter the main hall. Otherwise, as you know, that more than 400 worshippers, they were inside the main hall. But still, the situation needs more attention, and more steps should have been taken. But as you know that in Balochistan, we are having a peculiar kind of situation. During the, like my colleague said, that during the last few days, we have seen surge in the terrorist activities, and different incidents like targeting of senior police officers have taken place in the recent past. And this is also a very brutal act in which the Christian worshippers, they were attacked. But we should keep in mind that in Balochistan, Balochistan, the imbroglio that we are facing, it is multifaceted. We are having a religious factor is there, separatist factor is also there, sectarian factor is also there, and now this such kind of terrorist organization like IS, this is also this is a serious threat. But still, I would say that the government have already taken good steps, and as the Chief Minister of Balochistan, the Governor of Balochistan, and IG Balochistan, he said that we are further beefing up the security measures, and we would try to prevent recurrence of such incidents in future, because we know that the Christmas is, we are having Christmas on 25th, a few days after we are having the Christmas. So definitely the government would take into consideration the loopholes that are present, we are having at the present. And inshallah, I am quite sure that keeping in view our former previous experience in tackling with such incidents, I think the government would take more measures in this regard.
Well, we hope that that's the case. Let's also talk about the other aspects that are vulnerable in Balochistan, especially when we talk about the CPEC and the known agencies that are trying to damage it. How much do you think that may also be a factor in the geopolitical game that is being played in our region, sir? Do you think that has also something to do with this entire
well, one cannot
space?
say for certain about this specific incident, but certainly these very forces that you mentioned, like the Indians and also certain elements within Afghanistan government, which are very inimical towards Pakistan, and they have given space to these elements in Afghanistan and have allowed them to sort of operate in a very hostile manner towards Pakistan. And so it's very much possible. So I think as has been described very aptly, that it's not only just the Daesh, there are so many other elements as well which are targeting Pakistan. So Pakistan has to take a lot of measures, and I would say that Pakistan should also, besides taking all these security measures, must also engage politically. With, of course, it is engaging with US, but also I think with Afghanistan, and also if India is not in a is not willing to engage politically, at least through Afghanistan and through US, message has to be sent that this sort of attitude of India in Afghanistan is very damaging, and if you expect that Pakistan cooperate with Afghanistan, then you also have to take reciprocal steps. So I think Pakistan is under threat from several sources. It's very unfortunate that it has been stretched to the limits, but yet I think we need to sort of strengthen our border. One of the things that we have been doing in the past is this border management, but I would think that it has some positive aspect, but to be able to sort of really fence the border and ensure that there are no elements which
But surely also blaming it completely on those forces that are using the borders to enter into Pakistan is not the entire picture, sir, because I'm sure there are a lot of elements that are already present within Pakistan, which are far more damaging than those who are
So that's why I kept on emphasizing on the fact that it is not only just a sort of a security problem, it is also a political
social problem as well.
Social and political problem. And if you address those problems also simultaneously, which was a part of NAB, then I think we have greater chances of reducing such like attacks.
So unfortunately, NAB has become
dead.
A symbol of, it's become a joke really. People are now, making jokes about it on Twitter and other other forums. So in your opinion, Khurram, there were a couple of worrying news items that crossed my eyes, and one of them was tracing the equipment and the weapons that were being used by Daesh in particular to the United States, as well as some other friendly countries, Muslim countries in fact, who are arming these people. What is the government doing about bringing this situation to light, and also raising these very serious questions with those concerned?
I'll fully agree with General Saab, as there is no single cause of war. Same is the case with terrorism. Terrorism is multi-causal. There is an element of ideology, and there's also an element of geostrategy to terrorism. What you are asking basically relates to the geostrategic dimension of terrorism. Recently, there have been reports that Daesh has been facilitated by a number of Western forces in the Middle East. BBC reported 3 weeks ago that when those Kurd forces went into Raqqa in the final battle against Daesh, American forces provided safe passage to 4,000 fighters of Daesh with truckloads of weapons. And according to Turkish intelligence resources, those 4,000 fighters are now going to Europe using Turkey as this transit route. Some of them have also moved to Afghanistan as well. If such episodes have taken place under the watchful eyes of Americans, we must also scrutinize the role of United States of America, whether they are actually serious in eliminating terrorism from Middle East and from this region as well. And you have rightly said that recently there have been reports about the weapons being used by the Daesh. Most of the weapons was traced back to either United States of America or Turkey. So these are the geopolitical dimensions of terrorism we must not ignore while discussing it. Certainly proxies is now becoming the dominant characteristic of terrorism. There was a time when there was too much ideological overtone to terrorism, but now ideology is becoming secondary to the geostrategic interests of major powers. As you have seen in case of Baluchistan, terrorism perpetrated by Daesh may be explained as an ideological phenomena, but what ethno-nationalist separatists are doing, there is a clear connection between the hostile intelligence agencies and the terrorists. They strike Baluchistan whenever there is a mega event related to Belt and Road Initiative. I remember when the when hundreds of countries were meeting in Beijing for Belt and Road Initiative Forum, that was the time when terrorists struck in Balochistan to give message to the international community that Pakistan is perhaps not safe for such an investment. So there is certainly an element of proxyism. These terrorist organizations are being used by certain major players, and that role of major players must be scrutinized when we are discussing terrorism.
Absolutely. Khilji Saab, coming back to the provinces where most of the problem is taking place, what, in your opinion, sir, is the government really doing in practical terms? We've heard that they're improving or increasing security, but that's again as a knee-jerk reaction. We keep hearing those words, and a lot of it seems like lip service to the common citizens, because in reality we don't see those words being put into action. So in your opinion, what are the practical steps being taken to address this issue of militancy in Balochistan? Of course, you mentioned that there are a number of issues to deal with, but then again, when we talk about terrorism and we talk about Daesh, then the country is united, and there is no two versions of what we're all up against in this case.
As you know, that Balochistan is having a special geostrategic importance. We are sharing a porous border with Afghanistan, and border management. If we want to control this thing, then we have to control the border. You may say the cross-border movement, and for that purpose, border management is very much necessary. And different law enforcement agencies, they have taken different measures for bringing into place proper border management. Apart from it, we are also having a border with Iran, and that is also a very long border, and sometimes we also face certain incidents of law and order, especially the activities of certain terrorist groups on that border also. So first of all, I think the most important thing is that border management must be strengthened, and until this border management is strengthened, the possibility would remain of such activities, because as you know, that the Afghan city of Kandahar, it is very much close to our city of Chaman, and you know again that NDS, it is very much active in Kandahar, and there is a nexus between NDS and Ra, and Ra is having its presence in Kandahar. So Kandahar is very much close to the border with Pakistan, especially with Chaman. So if we want to control such activities, and especially such a nexus between different, you may say,
well, we also found
intelligence agencies of our Yes.
Kulbhushan Yadav was also part of that same nexus that was nabbed in Balochistan. So when we have such effective intelligence that is taking place and is delivering, then why do we feel or see these lapses in our security when such incidents take place?
Definitely lapses are there. We cannot ignore these lapses because otherwise such incidents would have not taken place. Lapses are there, but we learn with the passage of time. Definitely we need to take certain measures, not only at provincial level but at national level also, and definitely different steps are underway. Our security agencies, they are working in this regard, because you know that on border side we are having different security agencies, and they are coordinating with each other. And if we compare this situation with the past years, definitely we have seen some improvement. We cannot ignore this thing, that we cannot say that we have not seen any improvement. Definitely improvement is there, but still incidents are there, and we have to take lesson from the past mistakes. And our different state actors, as well as our state security agencies, they are required to further beef up the security measures, and especially border management, because we know that at border we are having different tribes who are living in the border areas. They are having their people on the other side as well as on this side of the border. So if we want to manage this you may say this movement, definitely we need different you may say different important measures are to be taken for preventing illegal movement on this border, especially at our border with Afghanistan.
Absolutely, that needs to be taken into account. Sir, did you see this very worrying statement coming out from Mr. Rex Tillerson talking about Pakistan may lose territory to terrorists? Did you come across this news item by any chance?
Yeah.
So would you like to comment on what Mr. Rex Tillerson was alluding towards?
I think it was a highly an exaggerated statement, and in a way he was trying to sort of.
Do you think it was a highly exaggerated statement, or was it a warning for things to come? It could be taken in any way, sir.
What he was trying to indicate, there are two things in it. One is, of course, it's a highly exaggerated statement, and then the exaggerated statement may have a motive. That's what I was trying to say.
Sure.
One is that maybe he's trying to sort of put pressure on Pakistan. That is one aspect of it. The other aspect is that by saying this, they are going to use it, and supposing, then they have start intruding into Pakistan territory, and saying that, well, we had already warned Pakistan.
Because they also further, they further elaborated that we will try to work with Pakistan wherever we can, but we will also take unilateral action where we feel that Pakistan is not playing ball with us. So in that sense, sir, what do you think the options would be for Pakistan to react in such a circumstances?
Well, Pakistan has given a categorical statement that if they would probably violate Pakistan's airspace or territory, then Pakistan would certainly retaliate, because Pakistan's sovereignty cannot be compromised. So I think Pakistan has also given a warning. It would be extremely ill-advised on the part of the Americans to sort of violate Pakistan's sovereignty, either the aerial or the ground sovereignty. And so I think they are trying to build and put pressure, and they are also trying to toe the Indian line, and it will not work. In fact, they need Pakistan's cooperation. Pakistan is doing its best as far as cooperation is concerned. They had certain concerns about Haqqani network, about Shura and all that. Pakistan has taken care of that as much as it can. But as all our colleagues were saying just now, that the border is so porous, it's impossible for either on the Afghan side for the Americans or for Pakistan to totally sort of seal it. In fact, their border is in a terrible state. They need to sort of strengthen their side of the border, and their weaknesses cannot be, they have such major weaknesses.
So we've seen that Pakistan has been used or made as a scapegoat for their own failures in Afghanistan repeatedly. But then what lessons have we been able to learn from that? I'll take this question to Khurram. Khurram, in your opinion, because continuing from what General Saab was also talking about, how seriously should we be taking Mr. Rex Tillerson's warning when he says that Pakistan may lose territory to terrorism? Now, that is very very dangerous statement coming from such a high US official.
There are two sides to Republicans' Pakistan policy. One is rhetoric, second is actually the policy. We have seen historically that rhetorically they have been very tough on Pakistan, but practically they are not as tough as they pretend to be. For example, just giving you one example, in the past, America has always linked Haqqani network with Jamaat-ud-Dawa. This is the first time that Americans have de-linked Jamaat-ud-Dawa from Haqqani network, allowing Pakistan to focus more on the Afghan side. Similarly, a few weeks ago, they released some $300 million in terms of coalition support fund. But this rhetoric must be taken seriously. The second part of his statement was quite disturbing, in which he said that Pakistan must be fearful of the day when Afghan Taliban will turn their guns against Islamabad. This is something that I think should ring some alarm bells in Pakistan. Whether a convergence of interest between Afghan Taliban and Americans are concerned, I don't think that's even a possibility, because Afghan Taliban have fought against occupation for last 15, 16 years. Pakistan has always advocated a solution that basically that revolves around political initiatives. And with regards to Afghan Taliban's adjustment and acceptability, Pakistan has recently worked very closely with its partners such as Russia, China, Iran and Turkey to give some space to Afghan Taliban on the negotiating table. The regional countries have a consensus that Afghan Taliban are part of a solution. If you want to have a durable and long-term peace in Afghanistan, they must be given a space on negotiations table. So what I'm seeing in Afghanistan in the future to come is the repetition of what has happened in the Middle East. In Middle East, the American-led bloc was bent upon kicking Assad out of Syria. They were not successful because of the Russian and Chinese intervention. Americans even supported groups like Al-Qaeda to fight against Assad, which was counterproductive to say the least. At the end, it was the Russian and the emerging bloc which basically emerged triumphant over the Western bloc. So I see the repetition of the same events in Afghanistan, where this dissatisfied bloc consisting of Russia, China, Pakistan, Turkey and Iran have developed increased convergence over a solution. And America on the other side is on the other side of the table advocating what General Saab has just said. They might be just towing the Indian line, but Americans must understand that if they wish durable peace in Afghanistan, instead of towing Indian line, they must pay attention to the ground realities and listen to what the regional countries are telling them.
Well, let's get Khilji Saab's input in this as well, taking a line from what Khurram was saying. In your opinion, what kind of a role can Baluchistan play in terms of stopping these militants from entering from Afghanistan into Pakistan?
As we know that Baluchistan is an integral part of Pakistan, and in order to add something in our previous discussion, since assuming the office of the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, he has adopted unfriendly attitude towards Pakistan, and we can term his policy, especially the newly announced South Asian policy of Donald Trump, as very much unfriendly towards Pakistan, because they are blaming Pakistan for their own failures.
I'm sorry to interrupt you here, because further to that, he also, rather the statement coming from the US is that the Taliban are now on the run in Afghanistan, and they realize that they cannot have any kind of military victory in Afghanistan. Therefore, things seem to be moving in America's favor. Do you agree with this sort of
I don't agree.
perception?
This is quite surprising. If Taliban are on the run, then why they are increasing the number of their forces in Afghanistan? They are increasing in the new policy. They announced that we would increase the number of the forces.
So they continue to engage with the Taliban on the battlefield rather than having a political solution.
I think without the support of Pakistan, they cannot flush out the menace of terrorism from this region. The importance of Pakistan Pakistan and the role of Pakistan in flushing out terrorism from the region, it is very much inevitable. And this is also a mistake of the United States of America, as they have given an increased or enhanced role to the India. India is having no direct interest in Afghanistan, but still, although US knows that Pakistan is not having good relations with India, India has always adopted very hostile attitude towards Pakistan. Our history proves it. But still, US has given an enhanced role to the India in the new South Asian policy, and this is also something very much detrimental. US should learn from the past history that without the help of the Pakistan, they could never be successful in Afghanistan. And this menace of terrorism cannot be flushed, you cannot be removed from this region without the support of the Pakistan. Pakistan has faced a number of problems due to this terrorism. We have lost thousands of precious lives. We have faced attacks on our educational institutes. We have faced attacks on our different sensitive installations. So Pakistan is the victim of this terrorism.
Absolutely.
And
There's no
Pakistan wants
segment.
to work. Pakistan wants to work with international, you may say, with different international states, especially the United States of America, because it is in the interest of the region. It is the interest of the world that we work, we coordinate with each other, we support each other in, you may say, in flushing out this terrorism from the region. Because again, it is useful for Pakistan as well as for Afghanistan as well as for the whole region.
Absolutely. General Sahab, let's talk a bit about NAP and where does that stand as we speak. Unfortunately, the lofty goals and aspirations that were voiced or articulated in the National Action Plan, how far do you think we've been able to achieve any of those lofty ideals?
Well, I think it's very unfortunate. What they did was that, you know that, and we have repeated this several times, that the NAP came out with a plan, and it had about 20 points. And in that, they covered practically all the major areas that were necessary for improving the law and order situation and fighting terrorism within Pakistan. But unfortunately, out of those 20 areas that were supposed to be addressed very seriously, only about 2 or 3 were addressed, and those were the military courts and so on. And the rest, initially there was a lot of enthusiasm, but that soon died off. And there was no progress as far as reforms in the madrasas were concerned, or action to be taken, subsequently on many, many areas. Reforms in the prison reforms, and also the curriculum reforms, and also the narrative, national narrative. So, I mean, there was no area which was truly addressed at all. The government probably lost interest in it. It's a real shame, because...
So would you lay the blame down at the feet of the government entirely?
No, I wouldn't say that. Actually, there were many other agencies which were also supposed to be responsible. So I would not really blame just the government, but the government has an overall responsibility to see to it that the National Action Plan is implemented. Firstly, how many meetings have taken place? What sort of resources have been placed at their disposal? What sort of interaction has taken place with the political parties? Because the political parties also had a very major role in it. And if they were in a way either opposing it or were neutral towards many of the issues, then I think it was not possible to sort of move politically on those issues. So, and then I think there was a lot of expediency as well, because they thought that the government, that if we would press on madrasas or if we would press on education, then the provincial governments will probably not like it, so we will just leave it to them. Then I think they got too much involved or engrossed in other issues, and they lost sort of focus on the National Action Plan. But and the National Action Plan also, there was one very major thing that had to be done. National Action Plan only gave a certain direction, and so detailed plans had to be made and evolved, and those never happened. That never happened. And because that never happened, nobody really took seriously. Then I think there should have been regular meetings to make sure that there has been progress on all these issues that were raised there. But we didn't see that. So I think you can't sort of say that the leadership is not responsible. I will say that to a very large extent it is their responsibility. Then a lot of the provinces had a certain responsibility. Has there been there should have been a continuous checklist and they should have gone through that to see if the provinces are also performing or not on those issues. I think there were about 16 or 15 points which were supposed to be exclusively focused by the provinces.
And sir, unfortunately, the month of December seems to bring a lot of pain and misery for Pakistanis as a whole, because we are also commemorating or observing the APS attack that took place and brought the National Action Plan into being to start with. But even when we talk about what has happened subsequently, there's a lot to be desired. Let's ask Khurram. Khurram, how seriously do the National Defence University faculty and students take the National Action Plan, since you're already teaching there? Is that not a part of your counter-terrorism course? Do you teach these aspects of the National Action Plan, which are not strictly just security-oriented or determined with the end of a gun? What about the other aspects?
Well, counterterrorism as a science is a broad spectrum discipline. It has a soft component, it has a hard component. Unfortunately, NAP only focused on the hard counterterrorism, totally ignoring the soft counterterrorism strategies such as de-radicalization, such as rehabilitation, such as transformation of militant organizations. So NAP as an instrument of policy is not actually taken very seriously in the academic circles in and outside Pakistan. Rather, a national internal security policy, which was a document which was prepared much before National Action Plan, is rather a more comprehensive document prepared from the Interior Ministry of Pakistan. So this national internal security policy basically incorporates both components of counterterrorism strategy. It focuses on killing and capturing terrorists, as well as it focusing on preempting, identifying and preventing terrorism through politics, through social intervention, through economic transformation. So this is actually what we need to focus more on. But as far as NAP is concerned, I think little developments have been witnessed as far as NACTA is concerned. This is true that NACTA it does not enjoy ample resources to implement those plans, but with minimum resources, NACTA is working on developing counter-narrative to counter the extremists' ideologies. I'm a part of NACTA's committee. We are working on a draft. We basically incorporated views and opinions of all the stakeholders from representing all schools of thoughts, right, left, and the center. Then we prepared a comprehensive document that was reviewed by an expert committee, and then we will send it to the Interior Ministry. So things are moving. Similarly, as regard to countering the terrorism finances, NACTA has done a commendable job. Similarly, there is a process going on to mainstream the madrasas, the tagging of madrasas, but there is certainly lack of resources that NACTA is facing at the moment. As far as the role of other institutions is concerned, that is what the state needs to focus more on. When it comes to counter-narrative, it's not the state institutions who will work towards that. It's your poets, it's your intellectuals, it's your fiction writers, it's your teachers who will have to contribute maximum to basically counter the militants' ideology, and state will have to incorporate all these intellectuals to...
Sadly, we've also witnessed something else taking place along with the rampant spread of sectarianism. We've seen a lot of hate speeches, hate material being spread as well, although that is also to be curbed under the National Action Plan and also what our security policy determines. But unfortunately, we've seen the opposite taking place in reality. So is there some way that the Baluchistan government in particular has been addressing this aspect?
As it is a national issue, again, I would say that the national government as well as the provincial government, they in tandem, they are working to implement different sections of the National Action Plan. And as far as the proscribed organizations are concerned, definitely they are involved in fanning sectarian things, which is very much detrimental for our society. And in Baluchistan, we have seen different sectarian incidents in which hundreds of innocent people, they were killed in different, you may say, sectarian related incidents. definitely this menace is there, and this is a scourge for the whole nation, not only for Balochistan, because throughout the country we have seen such incidents. The intensity varies from region to region, but this is a national issue. Definitely steps should be taken by all the security agencies, and apart from it, as far as madrasa reforms are concerned, definitely we should not ignore the ground realities. Madrasas are there, and during the last few years we have seen mushroom growth in the number of the madaris or the seminaries. And if we talk in respect of their role in the society, definitely, as you know, that as far as our social fabric is concerned, we are having a lot of problems, especially the children from the downtrodden families, from the poor families. They generally go to the madrasa. Why? Because there they have not to pay, and that's why the madrasas, some of the madrasas or seminaries that are involved in negative activities or terrorist activities, you may say they brainwash such children. So definitely it is the responsibility of the federal as well as the provincial government to monitor the role as well as the activities of the madaris, and the government should take stern action against those madaris or those seminaries that are involved in terrorist activities. But those madaris that are playing a positive role in the society, they should be promoted, because we know that there are different madaris that are being supported by the government. For example, in Lahore, in Karachi, we are having certain seminaries or madaris. They are playing a good role in the society. Even they are imparting modern education to the students. So if there are some good madaris, definitely there are good madaris are also there. So the government should take a strict action against those madaris that are involved in illegal activities, that are promoting terrorism. But as far as those madaris are concerned, which are having soft image, those should be promoted by the government, and they should be, the government should provide them teachers, the government should provide them computers, so that they can impart modern education to the students. And if this tendency or if this policy is followed, definitely I think it would bring a visible change in the society, because you cannot close all the madaris altogether. It is quite impossible, because you know that then it would
And
be
it is not necessary either. What we really need to see is the right kind of support being given to these madaris, where they can, turn out positive, productive citizens, rather than those people who are brainwashed and trained to become terrorists. Unfortunately, that is not happening.
black sheep are to be controlled.
All right, another aspect that Khurram also raised is about intellectuals and poets. And in your opinion, what kind of a role do you think the media is playing when it comes to the implementation of NAPSR? Let's be very candid and honest, since media has also to be, rather it is the fourth element of the state. Is it doing its job?
Well, firstly, I don't think they are giving sufficient importance and priority to this aspect, preventive aspects of terrorism. They only report the event, and then they report it. It doesn't help that much, and the way they also report it is also not helpful. So the most important thing, as you have pointed out, I fully agree with you, that the media has a very major responsibility of trying to sort of educate the people, and also have programs which does help in bringing a great amount of awareness, also pushing the government to implement the National Action Plan, also to suggest ways as to how to implement it in the best possible manner, to show the weaknesses where they are, and also take the whole subject very seriously, of countering terrorism. So I think media to some extent has played its role, but much more can be done.
Well, Khurram, in your opinion, since you mentioned about intellectuals and poets playing their role, we've witnessed on social media a number of such stories appearing where peace activists have gone missing or have disappeared after sharing their point of view, or which are, towards peace and a positive sort of narrative. Unfortunately, they're not being given the kind of protection that should be out there for such people. Some of them have had to leave the country. Even our religious scholars that project a moderate and progressive version of our religion have to run for their lives. Why do you think that is the case?
Well, as far as those peace activists are concerned who were apprehended by the state authorities, I think they were involved in selective criticism of terrorism. Rather, they were constructing a reality that was basically working as a counterforce to states' efforts to counter terrorism. But there have been serious efforts by Pakistani scholars, intellectuals, poets, and religious clergy to counter the militants' ideology. Number of religious scholars in Pakistan have issued religious decrees condemning terrorism. You have the important case study of Naimi Saab from Lahore, who issued first fatwa endorsing the military operation in Waziristan.
And he was killed as a result.
The state failed to protect him.
Absolutely.
That's the major point.
That is the point I was trying to raise.
You have ample messengers, you have number of messengers willing to counter militants' ideology, but state fails to protect them. I think if the state has got number of messengers who are willing to devote their efforts to counter militants on ideological grounds, the state authorities must at least ensure their security so they can speak out their mind and they can effectively challenge the militants' narrative. You have number, Maulana Hassan Jan was an important religious cleric. Mr. Ghamdi, he's saving his life, he's forced to seek refuge in Malaysia.
Which is a very sad
state of affair.
Absolutely.
At the part of our government.
And I think we need to wake up to this reality. We're almost out of time, Khilji Sahab, but one last comment, or since we also talked about Afghanistan being part of the problem and also being part of the victim aspect of this entire issue, there was a delegation of Afghan parliamentarians visiting Pakistan, and the crux of the discussion was to build bilateral ties and to build the trust deficit that has materialized between the relations of our two countries. How do you think that's going to be achieved? Very briefly.
Generally, there is a common proverb in English. It is said that when your neighborhood is on fire, it means your own house is at risk. And in international law and in international relations, we say that you can change your friends, but you cannot change your neighbors. So Pakistan and Afghanistan, they are ground realities. Both of them should accept this ground reality. And Pakistan, since day one, Pakistan is trying its level best to have cordial relation with Afghanistan. But unfortunately, the response of Pakistan has not been reciprocated by the Afghanistan. If we talk since our independence, I don't want to go into the history, yes. but definitely it is a fact, and I think Afghanistan should realize it, and it should try to improve its relations with Pakistan. It should not Afghanistan should not create problems for Pakistan, and Afghanistan should stop unnecessary, you may say, hostile kind of attitude towards Pakistan by improving its relation with India, because India is always in search of opportunity to cause problem for Pakistan, and Afghanistan should realize it. Pakistan has always supported Afghanistan through thick and thin. Pakistan has supported Afghanistan, whether it was the Afghan war during the Soviet era, and even after that, Pakistan has always supported Afghanistan, and Afghanistan should realize this thing.
Well, we hope that that is the case very soon. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for taking out the time and being on the show and sharing your views with us. Well, you heard the conversation, and in conclusion, we'd like to say, as always, that we, according to the government, do need to get our own house in order, but for that, we need the support of every single citizen of Pakistan who should keep a vigilant eye around them and make sure that these incidents of terrorism are reduced by even talking to each other and telling each other that love is the only way forward. With that hope and on that note, it's goodbye.
And they do not, this decision of President Trump does not conform to those those resolutions of the United Nations.
So therefore they are illegal.
So they are illegal. Also, the United States sponsored a peace process in the past, which came to the conclusion that the only solution of Palestinian issue is two-state solution.
But again, sir, that is also another debate, because the Palestinians themselves have said if you have a state which does not have apartheid as is being practiced by the Israelis against the Palestinians, then they would be very happy with one state and let it be a democratically run state. That would be the real solution.
But sir, two-state is the only solution, practical solution,
Let's see, sir. Let's see how it plays out in the Middle East. But thank you very much, sir, for taking out the time. Rana Saab, Javed Saab, for being here and sharing your views with PTV World. Well, you heard the conversation, and in conclusion, as we always like to say, is that we hope and we pray that we have a better future for our generations. But the way things are going, that seems like a really high hope. So stay tuned to PTV World.
But it is how we organize ourselves to get there.
I have one request to make to you.
Please, sir.
You are a very unusual anchor. I'm really impressed by your enthusiasm.
Thank you very much.
Come, get out of this, come to Sindh. I'll arrange for you. And see, we have organized almost, nearly we are with the European Union and government of Sindh, because they're the ones who are supporting us. I mean, you'll be surprised, the government of Sindh is really in the forefront. And you, of course, and you'll see what these women are doing.
Well, sir, more power to them. I'm a great supporter.
Well,
and
you should come and
even
see.
Though, even though people don't think that it's the right thing to
do
say.
a program on them.
Absolutely,
you know,
sir.
take it.
You know what Hitler said, that if you want a great nation, give me great mothers, we'll make a great nation. And that is so true, even though it was coming from him. But thank you so much, sir, for taking out the time,
Thank
because
you
we're
very much.
completely
Very
out of time.
pleased.
Thank you so much
Thank you
for
very
being here and sharing your views with PTV World.
Very, very good.
Well, you heard the conversation, and in conclusion, we'd like to say that the only way forward is for each one to play their part in making Pakistan a success, and we should all do that, and I pray and I hope that that happens sooner rather than later. And on that note, it's goodbye.